content negotiation. Again, another very quick subject. Already mentioned this morning when we talked about the basics of web APIs. Web API respects HTTP rules and features, and one of those good practices, and in some cases requirements in HTTP, is to use the content type header and to try and respect the accept header if provided. So if you remember, content type says this is the type of data I am sending to you, and that works in both directions. You say that to the server, it says that to you through request and response headers. And the accept header is specifically going from a client to the server. It's the client saying, this is the type of data I prefer. Fairly often it'll just be XML or JSON. It could be JSON or XML or CSV. And again, remember, the server will look at that list of things being requested and say, no, I can't do the first one, but yeah, I know how to do that. So I'll send you one of those. And if it gets to the end of the list and doesn't find one, you get a unacceptable. I think there's a status that is unacceptable. I forget what number it is now, but there is a status that tells you I am not able to honor your accept header. Common MIME types that are used in web services environments, application/JSON. Sometimes you'll see people using text/JSON. Technically, they are the same thing, but the correct recognized form is application/JSON. Application/XML or text/XML, both will work. Another one that you see fairly often, particularly with data sent to a server, is application XWWW form URL encoded. When you submit a form on a web page, that's that format. It's what they call form encoded. So it's a way of encoding spaces and special characters all get encrypted into different %20s and things like that. That's URL encoding. But anyway, that's what happens when a form gets submitted. And it's a fairly common way of sending data from a client into a web server or a web service as well. So the server will process the data and it will try and honor the first accept type that is specified. If it can't, it will return 406, not acceptable. If you're not familiar with form encoding, there's just a very simple example. So what form encoding looks like is name equals value, ampersand, name equals value, ampersand, and so on. It's just a list of name-value pairs. Content negotiation with data sent from the server. So basically, the client basically is expressing a preference for the type of data to receive via the accept header, and the server will either respond or it won't. It will either say, yep, there's the data in the format you want, or it will say unacceptable. Okay. And any response from the server will include a content type header that confirms the type of data that is being returned. So if you request 3 or 4 different types, you can look at the content type header to find out which one you got. Again, in Web API, the Web API lower layers take care of all this stuff for you. They're just going to deserialize it and hand you back an object, assuming it matches, or you'll get the 406 status. So here's some examples of content negotiation. Just to press the point home, some of these are default behavior. So the top 2, accept application JSON or application XML, Web API deals with that inherently. But you can implement your own custom processes as well. You can plug things into the Web API pipeline and give it support for other types. For example, you might plug in support for returning text/vcard. A vcard for a person or a contact or something. You might be calling an API relating to a person and say, accept image/ping. You know, give me a picture of the person. This is not necessarily just about ASCII text. It could be about anything. Give me a video of their 3rd birthday. I don't know what content type that would be, but there you go. So that's the point of content negotiation. You might well have a service that exposes a single URL, give me information about the person, but it might have 5 or 6 different things it can do, depending on, do you ask for a photo or a contact card or the date? Hopefully you get the idea. Let's just see content negotiation in action. We don't really need to do anything particular because Web API has built-in support for it. So all I'm going to do here is let's go to the get all people test. And as we've already seen, well, we did actually hard code it. I specified, no, I didn't. Okay, so Web API is just defaulting. I didn't tell it what I wanted, so I got JSON. It's the default behavior in Web API. And it told me so, application JSON. Okay, if I want to, I could use content negotiation. So we can go to the headers collection, and I'm going to add a header called accept, and we'll tell it application XML. And I'll save that as get all people XML. Save. So the only difference between the two requests is one has an accept header that says application XML. So we send that, and in our response body, there's our data coming back as XML. I'm not going to go into implementing custom content types and all of that kind of stuff, but it's absolutely totally possible. And notice 3 is still there, because I didn't do a rebuild. I didn't rebuild the service, so it's still running in the background with the data from last time, basically. Let's do one other one. So let's do the create. Okay. One other example. Let's look at an example of sending an alternate type of data. So here's the operation that creates the new person. There's our JSON body being sent. Let's change this one around a little bit. I'm going to change this to XML data that we're sending. And this is just, here's one that was prepared earlier. This, by the way, originally came from, let's just take that breakpoint away. Came from here. I just went in here and said, oh, that's what I need. Put and paste the data in. So the API docs is telling me the format of what's needed. So basically, we'll change the test to send XML, and we need to tell the server that. So again, we're going to go into our request headers, and we've already got a content type application JSON from the original request, and we're telling the server, I'm sending you XML. So save as, create person XML, save, and there's our response 204 no content, get all people, and now we got 4. So whether we want to use XML or JSON, there's really nothing to do in the service. It's a case of just the client choosing how to interact with the service.